As the sun rises over Turkey and the shadows in the valley of the massive caldera of Nysiros retreat, the light penetrates one of the largest active volcanoes in the Mediterranean. The caldera is the beating heart of this tiny, wild island, one of the smallest of the Dodecanese archipelago, home to less than 1,000 people, with whitewashed stone villages, green countryside, and spectacular views over the Aegean Sea. The Greek island of Nysiros is hard to get to. With no airport, everything comes in by ferry from Rhodes and Kos. There is no natural fresh water, and few tourists venture here to visit the incredible caldera. The abundant hot springs are a jealously guarded secret. The land here trembles constantly, as Nysiros is one of Europe's most high-risk volcanoes.
Nysiros is a magic place, I think, for anybody that loves to be in a place with not a lot of people, which has not been destroyed by tourism.
So the volcano is a blessing for the island. And it is very important for us to keep it the way it is.
I tell people like you have to see Nysiros and the volcanoes from Nikia through the eyes of an eagle. And it's really beautiful and I can never get enough. Every time I see it, I want to see more.
Down in the valley, as the sunlight pierces the shadows, the bubbling sulphurous waters with their distinctive stench announce that this is an active volcano. It is the second largest in the Aegean. Inside the main caldera are a cluster of small, visitable craters with exotic names: Stephanos, Alexandros, and Polyvortis. The Stephanos crater lies in the southern part of the caldera. It is the most active of them all and still emits fumes and liquids, making it one of the island's main attractions. All around it, mountains rise up to 550 meters above sea level, in a mosaic of colors created by the rocks and minerals deposited by eruptions of the past. The narrow road down from the hilltop villages passes through the fertile caldera floor, the Laki Plain, that is also home to a farm. George Vougioukalakis is a geologist who lives on the island. He first came here to study the geology of the volcano and then to teach. But although not a native, he has come to stay. The steep path into the caldera is slippery due to the fine volcanic dust. It takes an intrepid tourist to go down. Accompanying George are his two sons who have returned from studying in faraway Athens.
These yellow crystals are native sulfur. They are deposited by the hydrogen sulfide, which is coming in the air, and so it deposits native sulfur. And it goes, one of the materials that was used in the past to produce sulfur when they needed for agricultural reasons.
The amazing Stephanos crater, open to anyone who dares brave the heat, emits the strong stench of hydrogen sulfide fumes, generating the smell of rotten eggs. A closer look reveals yellow sprays of sulfur crystals forming near the active fumaroles, The crater floor becomes damp with the steam the volcano pushes up through the Earth's crust, but cracks up when it dries under the sun. There is no shade here during the day when temperatures soar.
We are standing in Nysiros hydrothermal crater. Hydrothermal activity is very intense in the area because the volcano is active. So we have all the caldera floor filled by different hydrothermal craters. We have explosive events in prehistory, which is, for example, Stephanos. We don't know the exact age, but it should be 5, 6, 7,000 years before Christ.
The hot water inside the crater is pushed through the bedrock under pressure from the lava field that lies below. It is still boiling when it hits the surface. The mud caves are made by collapsed bubbles of gas that have worked their way up from the depths of the crater. These muds are precious. The volcano of Nysiros is truly unique.
You have all kinds of volcanic products and expose it in the way that you can teach to the students every phenomenon from submarine volcanism up to the large explosive events.
Nysiros is a tiny island, just 8 kilometers in diameter, in the center of the Dodecanese archipelago, a dozen kilometers from Turkey. It is part of the Aegean arc of volcanoes, which includes the more famous Santorini, that marks the boundary between the Anatolian and African tectonic plates. It lies at the southern edge of a massive underwater volcanic system that stretches between here and the island of Kos, where hydrothermal waters bubble up out of the volcanic cliff face. Close by, waves crash over volcanic rocks and black sand, the visible sign of a volcano below. Seen from the beautiful beaches of Agios Stephanos and Kefalos of southern Kos, the circular stretch of sea between here and Nysiros has the small island of Giali at its center. The tiny island is almost pure pumice, with outcrops of obsidian and basalt. It is one of Nysiros's main economic resources. The relationship of the islanders with Kos goes back 3,000 years, when the founder of modern medicine, Hippocrates, created the first ever hospital, the Aesculapion of Kos, and sent some of his patients across the sea to the Thermiani springs on Nysiros, which remained an important therapeutic center throughout antiquity. Today, there are less than 1,000 people living here, after at least 3 generations of families emigrated to Australia and the USA, fleeing post-war poverty and earthquakes. The émigrés remain fiercely loyal to their ancestral home, sending money to modernize and keep up the island, which continues to call them back. The newly elected mayor, Christopher Koroneos, taught chemical engineering at Columbia University before being elected mayor of the island in 2014. One of his top priorities is reviving Nysiros's rundown spas as a tourist attraction, even if it means allowing private investors to manage them.
We are at thermal baths of Mandraki, Nysiros. We're in a very historic place because this was the thermal baths that were built in the beginning of the century of the 20th century from Nysyrian Americans. I'm sitting here with my friend Tony. Hello, Tony.
Hi.
Tony is a local man. He's a good friend. He was in New York for many years, like I was. He came here, he built a hotel, now he lives here. And we meet very often. We drink tsipuro. And this is a typical local Greek drink, tsipuro, which is made out of grapes, of course. Here.
The old building is actually the newest of the spas, and theoretically still working, with local Greek visitors paying just €30 a night for a room and entrance to the baths. The line of baths still bears the marks of recent use, but it is neither promoted nor fully efficient. There is a sad but romantic air of dilapidation in the two-story building. The raw material for the spa is naturally produced steam that simply flows freely out of the hillside.
The waters of these thermal baths have such a composition of chemicals, chemical substances that have a big impact on health problems that people face for their legs or for their skin, or they have different problems they treat. So people used to come here and take baths for 1 week or 10 days, and then they will feel much better. That's why we had a lot of people staying here.
The eerie emptiness of the baths and the neighbouring skeleton of a hotel will soon be humming with spa tourists from all over Europe, laying the ghost of decline to rest once and for all.
Now we're in the process of having this project go on to renovate the thermal baths. We'll give it to a private investor. We want to make it a hotel of, we're talking about 4 or 5 stars. So this will become again the focal point of economy of the island. This is my dream.
The day continues in the bar of the spa, where local Nysiros dishes are served in a simple but welcoming environment that is typical of the spirit that pervades the island. The island of Nysiros has been famous for its spas since the time of Hippocrates, the founder of modern medicine. He turned a Thermiani spring into a therapeutic centre, and it was later used by the Romans, who built the baths near the chapel Panagia Thermiani.
Nisyros was the most important and popular place for spa in the last period of 19th century, 1870, 1880, 90. It was the most famous center for people coming here from Istanbul, from Smyrna, from Egypt, to take thermal baths, because here is the place that Hippocrates had the first thermal baths for his patients.
Further down the coastline lies this massive thermal complex, which was one of the pearls of the Mediterranean from the 1800s to the 1930s, drawing wealthy clientele from as far away as Constantinople, Haifa and Alexandria, before the later municipal baths. It has been partially restored, but the work has been blocked by central government bureaucracy.
The whole economy of the island was based on thermal baths until 1950s, when we had the Pamis factory in Yali. And then this was going on until 1980s. In 1980s they started deteriorating, and you can see the shape it is today.
This cave, close to the village of Emporios, is still used today for rheumatism and arthritis. It's a homemade natural sauna, but nonetheless effective for that. Aphrodite Bukloi is the owner of one of the island's hotels with a sea view. She, her friends and clients enjoy not only direct access to the sea, but also her own private swimming pool, which she fills with thermal water. When she and her husband dug into the ground, hoping to find seawater, they found natural hot springs, an unexpected blessing for the hotel and for the business.
We don't know it that before. We had behind of our hotel a spring with geothermal waters. So we find it, we try to find the seawater, we find this, and it's perfect. We have our own spring.
Nysiros is a hydrothermal volcano with two aquifers at 500 and 900 meters depth, under pressure from a 3-kilometer deep lava field under a central caldera that collapsed after a catastrophic eruption. There have been 13 phreatic eruptions in known history, and the volcano still causes the land to tear open. In 2001, a rift appeared in the caldera floor known as the Laki Plain, caused by this constant movement of earth and water.
In the first geothermal drilling, which ended down to 1,850 meters below sea level, we touched one apophysis of the magma chamber. So we had a little bit of glass, which means that the magma chamber should be in a depth of 3, 4, 5 kilometers below our position here.
The structure of the volcano is unusual. The eruptions are mainly phreatic mud flows. The earth underfoot is sandy rather than rocky. The sulfur in the mud lends it a yellow shade. The magma chamber is very shallow.
So about Nysiros, Nysiros is our youngest big volcano. So it appeared over sea at about 150,000 years before present. And so we have a first period that builds up the volcano itself, the whole Nysiros island, for a period of about 100,000 years. And then we have two large explosive events which deposit all the pumice that is around here and creates the caldera. This was in an age about 50,000 years before present. Then we have again the volcanic activity which try to refill the caldera. So we have the domes which are below, these hills which are built up between 30,000 years before present and 15,000 about. And that was the main, the volcanic activity here.
Like all active volcanoes, Nysiros also offers potential for geothermal power, an idea that has divided the islanders.
And studies up to now estimate that we could produce something like 20 megawatts from this field in electricity, electric power. So it should be economic with such production, and it could probably be enough for the islands around.
There were two drillings that took place inside the caldera, which I believe it was environmentally, it would never should happen because you may have created a problem. What they found is that in the one geothermal area, the temperatures reach about 350 degrees maximum centigrade, which is quite a lot. I mean, it's very difficult in the world to find such high temperatures. And the pressures reaching 30 atmospheres. It's like an atomic bomb.
So if sometime local people decide that this is friendly, so we have to fix the area outside the caldera, most probably in the south part of the island. If everything is planned in the proper way, you could not create any problems.
Inside the volcano, their objective was to create 20 megawatts. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of cubic meter of fluid coming out. And this will all have gone to the sea. It have created a big problem. So from the beginning, when we ran for office, my colleagues and I have been against this project. And I'm against it not for any other reasons, but scientific reasons.
Geothermalism is a form of energy generation using the heat and pressure of the volcano to turn turbines to create electricity. While this seems a logical and safe form of energy, there are several drawbacks, mainly involving the disposal of the slurry that is pushed up through the artificial vents.
I'm a chemical engineer. My area of research is renewable energy and environmental management, so I know very well the problem that we will have on the environment and not only on the water but also on the air.
Mayor Koroneos has focused much of his mandate on preserving the wild, undeveloped beauty of Nysiros, which remains a well-kept secret, in part because it is difficult to get to. This is Mandraki, the capital and only harbour of the island. It is a quaint maze of white houses that nestle below the imposing rock where the monastery of the Panagia Spiliani stands. The ferries from Kos are small and run at irregular intervals. You have to get to the port of Kadamenas early to be sure to get on with a car. Everything that goes to the island, from bottled water to the daily newspaper, comes in via ferry. During the winter months, the ferry runs just once a day, if that.
A month ago I came from New York. Just like that I was in Athens. Then I had to come to Kos. Then I have to sleep over and wait the next day around 1 o'clock to get to Nysiros. From Kos to Nysiros, it took me longer than when it took me to get from New York to Kos.
The 6 p.m. ferry crosses the stretch of sea between Kos and Nysiros in just over an hour and passes by the island of Giali, the island of pumice, and one of the main sources of income for the municipality of Nysiros. Aphrodite Bukloi opens her shop only when tourists have arrived with the ferry.
The volcano is life for us. Without it, I don't know what we will be. We will not be here. It's bring everything to us. We can say the natural, how the green, the tree, the animals, the place where we are. It's beautiful. It's panoramic. Everything. It's rich. It's very, very rich, like island. And the volcano brings tourists. We have business like that. So it's alive.
Darkness falls. The tourists have left. All is quiet again on Nysiros. The caldera is the main tourist attraction of the island. The beautiful setting is still uncontaminated by shops and bars. Just one refreshment kiosk offers mainly coffee and the special almond drink made here called tsumada.
Volcano is part of the life here. I see this as a big asset because from geological point of view and from economic point of view, because a lot of people come here to see the volcano. So this is a great source of income for the local people, for the restaurants and for the business here.
A number of factors have miraculously saved the island from the mass tourism common on other Greek islands. It is not easy to get here, with only a few daily ferries from nearby Kos and Rhodes. There is also no drinkable water, except what is collected in cisterns in the rainy season and distilled in a desalination plant. Aphrodite Boucloi not only owns a hotel with its own geothermal spring, but also a shop just by the port of Mandraki, the island's tiny capital. This is where Aphrodite sells local products, such as an almond drink and other fruit extracts, as well as an invention of her husband based on volcanic mud, miraculous, she says, in combating skin disease.
My husband, he had very old inscription. At the old days, they used some of the stuff of the volcano to healing skin problem of the animals. He decided to make it better. So, except the sulfur, the bentonite, he put ilmenite inside, bitter almond, and water, but geothermic water. This type of mask can help people who have problem with eczema, allergy, problem with scars, of course with acne.
You have to clean well the mud deposited to be able to use them for skin purposes.
My husband is going and select, must be past a few weeks of raining to clean, and he knows when he's going straight there, and they start to take out of the volcano. And then he clean it, because like that where they selected, they have to clean it later, slow by hand. And they put it all together, they put the geothermic water, and they let it for a few weeks.
The miraculous mud and almond mix comes from the Nysiros crater, where hydrogen sulfide fumes are pushed up daily and deposit sulfur on the surface.
Maybe it's the type of the ingredients where exist in the volcano of Nysiros. It's a unique volcano already. So, and the mask is unique.
Volcanoes are always the more fertile. Volcanic soils are the more fertile. So also at Nysiros, if you see, there is a health of flora, different kinds, and it's also very productive. In the past, they produced here, Laki area, they produced all the vegetables and the fruits that they need for Nysiros.
Land use is for animals, unfortunately. So we have a lot of animals grazing in the land, and which is good and bad, because it's bad because you create a lot of problems. It's good because we have an economy, you know, we export meat.
The oldest route we came up with, according to the local people, should be dated at least 60, 70 years ago.
Among the returning New York emigres is Michael Andreotis, who spent 12 years in New York before moving back to the island where he and his 5 brothers were born. Today he makes wine from a rare indigenous variety of black grape known as Mavro Thilico that he discovered on the island. Thanks to the volcano and the island's isolation, the vine survived the phylloxera parasite plague that wiped out many of Europe's native grape varieties.
Thilico is the female, Mavro is the black, and because the women used to prefer that kind of wine and grape because it's sweet and soft, they call them Mavro Thilico, black female.
Michael bottles it for his family and friends. He created the label, which features a needlepoint design of his mother's and tells the story of Nysiros. It is a wine you cannot find anywhere else in the world.
My other brother, Ted, had the passion, the one who lives also in the States, and he has a restaurant in New York. He has the passion, and he gave it to me. But at the beginning it was difficult for me. Now I'm in love with this kind of work. I prefer this than other things I do.
The sun-drenched white stone villages are nearly all located on the eastern side of the hills to protect them from pirates and harsh westerly winds, especially in the winter. The island is also dotted with monasteries, as Nysiros was an important hub on the commercial routes between Asia Minor and mainland Greece during the Byzantine period, which made it a place for rich but weary traders to rest. A peaceful atmosphere reigns over the towns and villages of the island of Nysiros, which is also enveloped in an invisible cloud of volcanic vapors, including sulfur, carbon dioxide, methane and lithium gases.
We have calcium, we have magnesium, we have sodium, we have gallium, we have barium, we have lithium, zirconium, all these elements that have effect on health problems that one faces.
The mayor's drive to deliver only clean energy to the island is supported by another source of revenue that is close at hand. A pure volcanic product, pumice, was deposited between Kos and Nysiros in massive quantities over the millennia, creating the incredible island of Geothermal. The island is just a 15-minute boat ride from Nysiros over the clearest transparent sea and dark black volcanic boulders. The island is actually two pumice outcrops divided by a low isthmus.
The first exports of pumice started in 1956. Since then, this pumice factory there, a mine, has been a great wealth for the island because it has been employing people there. It's also giving money to the municipality. We have a certain percentage of the sales that they have for the pumice.
Pumice is put to use worldwide in a variety of areas, as different as construction and two-spaced. More than 500,000 tons are exported from here each year, with ships loading the white powder from this hopper before departing for their distant destinations.
The ships come to the island, they are loaded, it is produced on the island. People work there to produce it, and then they're loaded on the ship and they go to New York, Virginia, Israel, France, Germany.
The crystalline water around Nysiros and Geothermal blends shades of Caribbean turquoise produced by the white pumice seafloor with black obsidian and red and yellow ferrous volcanic rock. On Sundays, when the pumice mine is closed, an eerie silence only enhances the stark beauty of the limpid waters, white stone cliffs, and the black obsidian and basalt boulders.
Anything we need, I ask them for help for anything we need for the island. As a matter of fact, I was able to study because my father was the first manager there. So this is how I was able to go to school and be what I am.
Here, this little-known volcano is everywhere, in the sea, on the land, and in the minds and hearts of the inhabitants. The island of Nysiros is inhabited by fewer than 1,000 people. Once it was more populous, but before the pumice factory and with the decline of the first spa, poverty was endemic. These terraces were once all cultivated with olive trees and vines. Foreign emigration of Nisyrians began after the Greek Revolution of 1832, which left the Greek islands like Kos as part of the Ottoman Empire, where Islam continued to hold sway. A century later, in 1922, when the Italians took control of Kos and Nysiros, the island's population peaked at nearly 5,000. But a massive earthquake in 1953 destroyed many buildings, including almost all of the town of Emporios, and precipitated mass emigration.
In 1910, had a population of about 5,000. Today, we're close to 1,000. And the biggest, as I said, the immigration was in the 1950s and 60s. A lot of people that left, now they have families abroad, in the US especially, and they all stay there because of their children. In the US, we have about 3,000 to 4,000 Nisyrians living there. We have a lot of them living in Athens, in Rhodes, in Canada, in Australia.
Christopher Koroneos has been mayor since 2014, a New York professor of chemical engineering. The bond with New York is stronger than ever.
You can see here, this is the NASDAQ in New York. See what it says there? You can imagine that we have a lot of power in New York, the Nisyrians. So, I mean, this is in the Times Square, and this was on the board, on the billboard of Times Square.
This tiny volcanic island punches far above its weight in the financial circles of Wall Street.
One of our compatriots is in the Forbes list, Mr. Katsimatidis. I saw the Forbes list, he's worth, I think, $4 billion.
Now, some of the terraces are being restored by the children and grandchildren of people who left in the 1950s. One of the restored terraces still has its own wine press and distillery.
They step on the brakes, on the grapes, and all the wine will come right in here. And then they will take it from here and put it in the big clay pots. This structure, there is no concrete here, no cement, nothing. Everything is by stone.
The dry stone constructions have survived for hundreds of years, despite decades of neglect and dozens of earthquakes. This was a raki distillery, where the grape must was boiled and alcohol extracted by condensation. This plot looks exactly the same today as it did 100 years ago. The olive trees would have been accompanied by short vines that Nisyrians made their raki distillate from. The original owner of this plot watches over it in the form of a rock painting made by his grandson.
This is Nicholas Diakovasilis. He was born in 1867 here in Nysiros, and he used this land to make wine and raki, and also to grow the vegetables to sustain his family. And now, only recently, after so many years, his grandson Kostas Vlachos came to Nysiros, and he's restoring the land to the original condition. And most of the third generation children from the United States, they do come back here in Nysiros and they restore their houses, their grandfathers or great-grandfathers' houses and the land. They work on the land and they do spend a lot of money and they love this place. And once you get Nysiros under your skin, it never leaves you. I promised my father that before the end of the millennium, before the new millennium, I will be back, and my father could not believe it. This was back in 1994. When in 1995, when my father died from a sudden heart attack, I had to keep my promise. So on July 2nd, 1999, I took my family and came back to Nysiros. All 4 siblings, all born in that room.
The narrow streets of Nikia have been brought back to life by the New Yorkers who left and came back. The church even used to have a New York parish priest. The houses are built into the rock and overlook the dramatic landscape of the caldera, the heart of this earthly paradise.
It's a great view of the volcanoes, of the caldera.
The stark beauty of this perch, the hot winds that blow up from the caldera, and the dramatic panorama of the sea and volcano keep a strong grip on all the native Nysyrians who choose to leave it for schooling or opportunity abroad. Mike Zahariadis remembers the day he left at age 13 like it was yesterday.
So we left Nysiros and we went to Athens and spent a few weeks in Athens to go through the doctors and background checks from the embassy. And then we flew to New York. We landed in New York on January 22nd, 1970, me and my brother and my mother. As soon as we got out of the airport, we saw so much snow. I never saw so much snow in my life. I saw some dust in here in Nysiros back in 1963, but compared to what I saw in New York, it was nothing. We went to our uncle's house. My aunt handed me a shovel and said to me, "Welcome to New York."
The last eruptions of the Nysiros volcano were mainly of mud, and in the 1880s threw up these 2 craters. But the volcano is active, and there are earth tremors nearly daily.
In 1996, we had 5.6 on the Richter scale, and it was an incredible movement of the house. But the houses here, my mother's house, like every wall is a meter and a half. And it's stone, so it's very flexible, so nothing happened. I tried to get out of bed to help my son, and I couldn't get out of bed. I mean, the movement was so violent, and I remember the noise from the mountains of the rocks falling. And when I came to the same spot to look, there was dust all over the place from rocks falling from the top of the mountains.
Mike, like all Nysyrians, loves his volcano, although it still poses a threat. Between 1996 and 1998, there were no less than 1,600 earthquakes. The reality of living on top of a volcano is never far from the minds of Nysyrians, whether native or from New York.
No fear whatsoever, no, none at all. When the time comes, it comes. But nobody believes it will come. Not in our time.
An earthly paradise, Nysiros is blessed with crystal clear sea, healing baths, and restful pace of life. It lies on the very edges of Europe, unknown to all but a few intrepid travelers and men and women with roots set deep in this volcanic island.